It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this. I'm Jeff Grubb from GamesBeat.com. This is my comparison between the Razer Kiyo Pro, the Logitech StreamCam, and for good measure, the Logitech C922. I think that the results are pretty obvious. They are to me, anyhow. I like the original Razer Kiyo quite a bit. I think it had the kind of image processing that you should want if you are someone who wants to plug in a webcam, point it at yourself, and start streaming. I think that the Razer Kiyo Pro continues that lineage really well, extraordinarily well. It's one of the best webcams I've used so far. I'm really enjoying it. But before we get into the comparison, let's go over some of the basic details. The Logitech Kiyo Pro is launching now for $200. That's expensive, but it's right in line with where sort of high-end webcams are at right now. The Logitech StreamCam is also in that price range, and I think, you know, this sort of communications device right now is very hard to find. All of the prices are going up, so it's almost surprising that it's not more expensive. Not to give Razer any ideas, and not to, you know, let it off the hook. It is expensive, but I think if you are looking for a crystal clear webcam that you can plug in as a USB device and just let it go, let it rip, you're gonna have a hard time doing better than this. I have all three cams lined up here, and I think this is a good test. But before we get into it, I want to talk about a real quick thing. You might see the Razer Kiyo Pro hitch here a little bit, and I do not want to chalk that up to the Kiyo Pro, because when I used this on its own, I used it for an entire podcast, an hour and a half on Friday, and it didn't hitch at all. My guess is this is not an issue with the Kiyo Pro. It is an issue with bandwidth on the motherboard, taking all of these video streams in all at once, and that's where the hitching is happening. If this continues to happen elsewhere, I'll bring it up. But I haven't seen this issue until now. So if you see my face freeze for a second, we're gonna do our best to ignore that, everybody. All right. So yeah, I think this is a good test, because this is what we want webcams for, right? Most people are going to want to have a simple USB device they can plug in, set it down, not have to set up professional lighting, and just let it rip and have it do a decent job. And that's exactly how Razer is positioning this camera. They are saying this is a camera that can handle almost any lighting situation with ease, really. And what that means is that you don't have to think about the lighting that much. You just plug this in and go, and you're going to be pretty happy with it. And I think for most people who are streaming, especially most people who are streaming that want a webcam, that's exactly right. So this is what we want to see. We want to see, what does a face look like when you just plug these things and let them go. Now, so we have all three cameras here, and I've done a little bit of adjusting to them, not much. I just kind of tried to dial them in a little bit. I mean, for me, I'm already not happy with where the StreamCam is at now, and that's just because the lighting outside is changing a little bit. Clouds are going by, the sun is moving position, and now I'm not quite happy with the way the StreamCam looks anymore, and that's actually a big issue with the StreamCam. It does not like inconsistent lighting. It will go from a pretty good image to a really bad image very quickly if the lighting changes a little bit. These are not drastic changes. I have a window right here that's a problem for me. It's one of the reasons I did want to switch to using something like a smartphone plugged into my computer. I've been using a OnePlus 8 to do stuff like the podcast, because those cameras can handle the image processing, handles changes in light a lot better, with a lot fewer harsh changes in the way the image looks. The Kiyo Pro has similar features. It has similar capabilities to a smartphone camera. The image sensor that they actually use in the Razer Kiyo Pro is I think when I talked to Razer, I believe they said it was a nighttime security camera sort of sensor, so that it is meant to be used in low light situations. That means that when you put it in situations where there are lights, and you can, even if it's just coming from your monitor, it does pretty well. Now, if you have other lights, like I do, I have a light over here, and then of course the giant window here, and then some lights running overhead. You can kind of see them in the C922. Not much there, but It means that it is like if you pair that with a decent lens here, that they've actually added to this sensor, what you're going to end up with is this image that I think just looks so super crisp, super clear, and it still has what I consider to be really nice image processing that makes me look human. I've spoken about this before in my other videos about these cameras. The way Logitech handles skin is, for me anyhow, not great. I think I look blotchy in both. I think I look especially blotchy in the StreamCam, a little bit less blotchy in the C922, although you still see some the face inconsistency. These marks on my face look redder than they do in the Razer Kiyo Pro, and the Razer Kiyo Pro just makes me look pretty even, and again, like a real human boy, and I appreciate that. I think that goes a long way for me wanting to use this camera. And just messing around with it, well, we're going to see that the Razer Kiyo Pro has it's better at handling, if you don't want to dial in the settings, it's better at sort of just making you look good through a broad spectrum of how you might set it up. Where I think with both the Logitech cameras, you really have to get them right. So I'm looking at the camera controls just in OBS. You can adjust the Kiyo Pro in Razer Synapse. I believe when you do that, you get some extra features like the option to go between wide, medium, and linear image, like lens construction. I'm not sure. My vocab's failing me right now. But you basically, you could see how the shot on the Kiyo Pro is a little bit wider right now. I have it set that way deliberately because I think it makes me look skinnier. Yeah, it's nice. It's a good option to have on there. I think it might be on medium right now. One thing that you will notice using the Kiyo Pro, if you bring up the video property settings, is that you could turn the exposure way down. Normally, when you have a webcam and you're setting the exposure, even if you do have daylight coming in, like I do, you still need to set it like -5, -6, to especially if you're doing 60 frames per second. And so we have everything going at 60 frames per second right now, and everything's kind of set through -5, -6. The Kiyo Pro actually is set at -8. So we are getting that it's just a real quick burst of exposure, and yet it's still getting so much light because it's using that giant security style image sensor in there. So it's getting so much light, it's not worried. It doesn't need to be open for very long to get enough to get a good look at us and actually bring in enough light to process the image. I could turn it down to -9 and turn up the gain a little bit, but it's unnecessary. Let's turn it back here, and you can see I turn up the gain a little bit, and it's already over bright because the exposure setting is or the exposure is so good. So yeah, I think this looks fantastic right here. And when I was adjusting the Kiyo Pro, the only things I did was, I turned off autofocus on all the cameras. I hate autofocus on webcams. Yeah, so in terms of being annoying, it's not the worst. I just for me, I'm not moving around enough to really worry about that. So we're gonna let's just dial it in ourselves. There we go. What more do you need? My hair's a mess. But in terms of the adjustments, in terms of the changes that I made to get this camera to look good, all I did was adjust the exposure. And I was going to turn down the gain, and it was pretty low already. So I didn't even have to do that. It was just already ready to go after just setting the exposure. It was I think the auto had it set to -7. I turned it down to -8. It was ready to go. That was, that's really nice. That's what you want. You want a camera that's very easy to set up. And I think the Razer Kiyo Pro for most people is going to be exactly that. But let's take a look at the StreamCam as the direct competitor here. Yeah, this is the exposure set to -6. Turn up to -5, and then it doesn't look very good. We could try to I've set back to -6. We try to turn up the gain a little bit. You start to get some of that noise in there, and again, just none of this feels right. None of it feels like I'm happy with it. Try to adjust I think you really notice in the contrast. All this already looks unnatural. The skin, I turned it up a little bit, the contrast. Try to come back down. Try to find a happy place for it. and no, I'm starting to just look red. And again, now it's looking unnatural. And so I went from a contrast of about 150 to about 90 here. So somewhere in the middle is where it's supposed to be. And I guess, I guess right around here, 120-ish. I don't know. This is my experience using Logitech webcams. The StreamCam, the C922, the StreamCams are very similar to Brio. I think this is my experience using them. It is difficult to dial them in to where I am happy with the way I look. And the exact opposite is true with the Kiyo Pro, where you just turn it on, let it go, and for the most part, you're going to look good. Now, I mean, now we're just talking about the way that the image is processing the way I look, my skin, my hair. But I think we talk about like just the detail that it's significantly better on the Kiyo. Let's see if we can let's just take a look just at the Kiyo Pro and look at some of its specific features. Okay, so now we are in the Razer Synapse software. I know not the best way to show off the quality of the camera, but this will show off the features that I was trying to explain, but I couldn't access through OBS. A little bit frustrating, that note right there. When I was accessing OBS, this looked different. It really wouldn't even let me change anything while the camera was in use in OBS. Now we have it here. It's in, and we can use all these features. Starting with SDR, or if we click this button, we can go and get, let's see here. I was trying to click it in OBS. Let's click it and see HDR. And you can see that it already looks better. OBS is not going to be the best at capturing this, but for the most part, you should be able to see a little bit of the spectrum of color go from here to this. That's how scientists explain it, from here to here. They just use their hands and move it around in a vague manner. You get the idea. Let's turn on HDR and leave it there, though. And then another setting here is the wide, or that's what we're on right now. You can see how it's distorting my closet right there, which is kind of I'm surprised it could even get it, but it's in there because it's such a wide angle. You can see how it's distorting that line. That's a straight line in reality. We are not a Dr. Seuss house, so that's a straight line, but it's bending that, and so that's how you can tell that the earth is really flat, and this is the trick that they use to trick you. Kidding. So let's click the button and see what happens. Also, you can see that it's not freezing anymore because I don't have the other cameras going. So again, this is what it's normally like. Okay, so now this is medium. Now we can no longer see the closet very well, just a little sliver down there. I am looking a little bit fatter, but you have all three options. You click it again, we get linear. And now I'm looking like my rotund self, but we also get, no distortion, just focused on my head. If you want to get all the details in there, just get right on the face you have there. You could do the manual focus or autofocus here. You can adjust a lot of the stuff that is in the Windows-based video settings here. You can get some pre-programmed image options here. There's warm, vibrant, cool. I should just set it to cool since that's me. Let's go back to custom. You know what? Cool. Actually, almost looks better. Warm. No, you know what? I like warm. Warm's good. Okay. So now let's just take what we've done here, take this and put this directly into OBS without the other cameras. Just get a good look of what this camera can do. Okay. So this is the Razer Kiyo Pro in all its glory, set to linear and with the HDR option enabled. Maybe that'll make a difference on YouTube. Maybe it won't. Maybe you could see some of the cat hair on my sweater. Mostly, I'll just say that my big takeaway from this camera is that I am really happy with the way it looks. I'm really happy with the way it handles all kinds of conditions. The kids came down. They turned on the overhead light. So now we have harsh outside light, actually a pure white standee light over here that is coming right over on this side of my face, and now an overhead tungsten colored light, two bulbs up there coming down from overhead, in addition to this going overhead, the string lights, and so it's vastly different than what I had it set up for before, and yet I made no changes, other than to the warm setting that you saw. I made no real changes, and yet I still think it looks fantastic. It looks really good. Um, and this is what you want. This is what I want. I think there are going to be people out there that will find maybe this is not the most natural camera. Like it's not exactly what I look like. Let's bring some other colors into here. So I think that blue that it's showing right here is a little bit louder than what this. Look, they're turning off the lights. That's that. Thank you. Actually, you could turn the lights off and on. We could see how the changes. I would still just keep going if I was live streaming and that happened. We wouldn't have to stop to adjust the camera because I still think this looks really good. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be so perfect that if you change the lighting and you have a green screen that it's going to continue to work with the color key, chroma key. Maybe not, but it seems better than most cameras for that. Now, getting back to this, I think that this is a little bit louder than what the blue is in real life. But that doesn't look. That's going to come down to taste. It's going to come down to, does that bother you? Let's check out my deodorant. It's kind of a tealish green, and it's looking. I think that looks a little bit blue on camera, and it looks yes. So does that bother you? It does that, that might. If you are someone who needs to have the camera come through with it, but perfectly natural colors, maybe the StreamCam actually is better for you. Maybe the Logitech C922 is a little bit better at that. It's not what I want for streaming onto Twitch. It's not what I want for creating content. It's not what I want for my podcast. I want something that looks as good as when I point my smartphone at something and it just takes a really good picture. I want that experience for a webcam. The Razer Kiyo Pro is that experience for a webcam. They've nailed it. This is what I want. It is, I'm not an expert on computational photography, but it feels like that concept come to webcams in a way that is very, at least it delivers functionally the same experience for me, where I point it at a subject, my beautiful face, and I get something that doesn't look horrific. I get something that looks like I take care of my skin and like I wash my hair or whatever. And I do those things, but at least this camera makes it also look like that. It's nice. I think for me, it's really easy to recommend this camera if you are someone who is if you're making a lot of content and you do want just an easy webcam. $200 is kind of right on the border where you maybe start thinking about maybe DSLR and a cam link. It's going to be more expensive than $200, but if you have an old phone sitting around that does HDMI out, like I have the OnePlus 8. I was using that. I was actually just using it as my phone. That's still my daily driver. And then when it was time to make the podcast, I would just plug that in to the cam link, plug it in the computer, and use that. And I was really happy with that. That looked really good. But this is producing an image that is almost identical to that. And I'm not going to set it up right now because why not? Should I just do it? I should just do it real quick. Let's do it real quick, and then we'll end this video and we'll get out of here. Okay. Let me get it set up. I'll be right back. All right. So here we are. We got the Kiyo Pro actually sitting right on top of my phone, the OnePlus 8 connected through a cam link. I think that both look really good. And I think this shows kind of what I was talking about. Now they look different. They have some different characteristics. I'm using Filmic Pro with the clean HDMI out option. That's also a premium payment. It's like $8, I think, on Android. I think it's the same thing on iOS. So keep that in mind. You have to pay for that also, and you also have to have a dock and the cam link. So it's not just an old phone sitting around. Although there are some wireless options that people seem to like these days. This is the option I use, so it's the one I'm going to speak to. But I think that this shows you the general sort of quality that we're working with. I think that the OnePlus 8, the image quality might be a little bit better, maybe. But I think that the Kiyo Pro's image quality keeps right up. It's a matter of taste almost. And I have I have my phone set to 60 frames per second, but I think the processing going through everything isn't quite as good, and it doesn't keep up as well. This could come down to exposure, but I think more likely it's just the connection, because I've tried everything to get it to be a smooth 60, and what you end up with is the Kiyo Pro looks a lot smoother and actually is 60 frames per second, and the OnePlus 8 through a cam link isn't quite keeping up. It looks like it's somewhere between 30 and 40 frames per second. I think that if you have an old phone laying around and you find a cheap way to connect to your computer and use that as your webcam, yeah, do that. If you are someone that is like going to have to go out and buy something new to get a decent camera setup for your Twitch live stream, for your YouTube videos, right now I would do the Kiyo Pro before anything else, personally. All right, let's finish this up with messing around with the lights a little bit. We already had the overhead lights on. They're off right now. I'm going to turn off this light right here. You see, I still have the harsh sunlight. It still looks pretty good. The blinds are closed. Let's open it up and see what that does. Harsh light, it's shining behind me, but it's also shining right on my face. I think that still looking good. I've made no adjustments to it. It's still looking good. Let's shut it and see if we can get it as dark as possible. So I put up a green screen to block the sun. So there's going to be a sickly green tint coming down on me now. But I'm mostly lit by my monitors, although there's still some light leaking around this screen. Not something I would use to make content, right? But I would use this during a video conference with other people. And I think that considering those conditions, this looks pretty good, and I haven't made any adjustments. Now, of course, we can make adjustments still. And I think a huge adjustment we could probably just make right away is turn up the gain, or I'm sorry, turn down the exposure. So we went from -8 to -7. I guess that's turning it up, but I mean, how good is that? That's all I've done. That's the only thing I changed, was just the exposure. We can adjust the gain if we want a little bit more, but we don't even need to, not really. I still think that you're going to see that a little bit of that sickly green hue because of the light's coming through the green screen now. But I don't think it's nearly as bad as it could be. It's handling it pretty well. To me, this is impressive. We've gone from some really different lighting scenarios, and despite all these changes, with minimal adjustments to the camera, and most of the time no adjustments at all, it is handling them just fine. To me, I've said it a bunch of times now. I'm going to repeat it, and then we're going to get out of here. This is what you want in a webcam. You want something that's just going to work. And Razer has made that with the Kiyo Pro here. I think that it stands significantly ahead of other webcams that I've used. So to me, this is the big winner. I think that if you have very specific needs and this doesn't meet it, I understand that. But if you just want a webcam to plug in to rely on to get you a good 1080p 60 signal that's going to look good, again, don't think you could do better than this. Not right now. Okay. That does it. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. If you have any questions about this, let me know. If there's anything I missed that you want to talk about, let me know. Maybe I could follow it up at least in the comments, if not with another video. Until then, take care of yourself. Have a good one, and goodbye.